happy with the interest shown to our congresses this year, with the participants from 5 continents, 30 different countries, and more than 90 international social researchers, besides almost 100 national participants. This was not expected in the beginning, so it became a very pleasant surprise. Uluslararası kongrelerin kendine göre dinamikleri olduğunu fark ettik. Meksika'dan katılımcılarımız sabah kahvelerini içerken, Pakistan'daki katılımcılarımız akşama hazırlanıyorlar. We realize that international congresses have their own dynamics. While our participants from Mexico drink their morning coffee, our participants in Pakistan get ready for the evening. Kongrelerimize dünya geneli ilgiden dolayı onur duyuyoruz. We are very honored for the wide world interest in our congresses. Elbette böyle organizasyonlar ortak aklın ürünüdür ve kongrelerimizin tüm süreçlerinde bize destek veren Malta Üniversitesi, İzmir Kavram Meslek Yüksekokulu, Adnan Menderes Üniversitesi Turizm Fakültesi ve Balıkesir Üniversitesi'ne teşekkürlerimizi bir borç biliriz. Of course, such organizations are the product of a common effort and endeavor, which we had abundant. I would like to extend our gratitude towards University of Malta, İzmir Kavram Vocational School, Adnan Menderes University, Tourism Faculty, and Balıkesir University for the support on behalf of organized committee. Ayrıca bunun dışında kongremize katkı veren Kemalpaşa Sanayici İş İnsanları Derneği, Akan Plus Yazılım, Zenit Madencilik, Sındırgı Kent Konseyi, Ege Yönetim Danışmanlığı Derneği'ne de teşekkür ederiz. Also, the contributors to our Congress that needs to be mentioned are Kemalpaşa Business People Association, Akan Plus Software, Zenit Mining, Sındırgı City Council, and the last but not least, the Aging Management Consultant Association. Thank you all for your support. You made it all possible. Şimdi kongre onursal başkanlarımızı konuşmalarını yapmak üzere davet etmek istiyorum. Öncelikle Sayın Profesör Doktor Erdoğan Koç'tan başlamayı isterim. Hocamız Bahçeşehir Üniversitesi'nde öğretim üyesi. Now I would like to invite our honorary presidents of the Congress to make their opening speech. We will start with Professor Erdoğan Koç from Bahçeşehir University. Yes, Professor.
Hello, everyone. Could you hear me? Meanwhile, my microphone is on. Okay, excellent. Hello, everyone. I wish you a very pleasant afternoon. I hope you're all well and safe. We would like to welcome you all to the 4th International Applied Sciences Congress. We are very much happy to see you. And as the honorary president of the conference, I'd like to give you a very warm welcome. Surely we are a little bit sad for not being able to meet you physically. Of course, we would have been much happier to see you in person and to have our usual discussions and our enjoyable chats together during the day and the evening, during the lunch and dinner times, in beautiful surroundings at hotels, at seaside resorts. We would have very much liked you to participate with us in the sightseeing tours, in musical, artisanal, historical, and cultural events. Alas, that is what we have now. But don't be so bogged down. Brace yourselves for the next year. We are preparing a great conference for you to attend with lots of events. We hope that the coronavirus pandemic will be over and we will be resuming our normal daily lives and be able to physically attend the conference. Yes, this year we are holding the 4th International Applied Sciences Congress. We have about, as Elvan said, about 90 participants from 30 countries, plus 100 from Turkey, 100 participants. We have participants from as far places as Australia, the United States, Ecuador, South Africa, Pakistan, and Mexico, and also from neighboring countries such as Romania. We have many friends and colleagues participating from there. Greece, Serbia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan, from lots of countries in Europe. We can say that almost from all over the world we have participants. We are reaching participants at different time zones. As Elvan said, while some of you are having their morning coffees, some of you are preparing for their evening dinner. Okay, this vibrant colorfulness can also be seen in terms of the diversity of the fields or the disciplines of the papers. We have papers to be presented from as diverse fields as tourism, economics, finance, marketing, and management. Yes, diverse, but also cognate fields, I should say. All of these show the success and the increasing strength of our conference in the academia. This depends very much on the increasing dedication to quality and the ensuing satisfaction of the academics who participated in the conference previously. We can see that the positive word of mouth has been extremely strong. The good word spreads around fast. We have now colleagues participating in our conference for the 4th time in a row, and also many new first-timers, of course, and hope to see you all in our future conferences. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished academics, we all live and work in an important era. The importance of social sciences, which is the general theme of this conference, is continuously rising. Social sciences are becoming increasingly more and more important. Let me provide you with some facts. Research shows that every 5 years, competencies required at work change by 35%. 35% change within just 5 years. This change requires not adaptation from the academics, it requires the leading of this change. Let me also tell you about another trend or development. According to Deloitte Access Economics Research and the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report, in 2030, a significant proportion of the people will be working in jobs requiring social skills, i.e. soft skills, rather than the technical skills. So social sciences will not only maintain a strong position, but will also continually increase it. Now, let me tell you about the program of the conference. Following the opening speeches, which will last about half an hour, don't worry, we will not bore you. We will have the keynote speeches in after a short while, starting at 14:35 Greenwich Mean Time +3. We have 3 keynote speakers, as you can see in the program. Tomorrow, the sessions will start at 10 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time +3. And same as Saturday, we will close the conference on Saturday at 1900 hours with the gala and the award ceremony. I would like to thank all the co-chairs, the executive, organizing, and scientific boards of the conference for their efforts in organizing and making this beautiful event possible. I wish you all an enjoyable and fruitful conference and hope that you establish many new networks. Now, thank you. It's over to you now, Elvan.
Thank you, Professor Koch. Thanks for your speech. Now let's hear Professor Küçükaltan from Kavram Vocational School. He's the director of the school. Yes, please, Professor Küçükaltan.
Teşekkür ederim. Öncelikle 1. Ulusal Sosyal Bilimler Kongresi'ne hoş geldiniz diyor. Başarılı ve verimli bir kongre olmasını diliyorum. Bilim dünyamız artık tek alanlı değil, çok alanlı, yani multidisipliner bir açılım yaratmıştır. Günümüzde tüm bilim alanlarının çok yönlü bir bakış açısıyla irdelenmesinin yararı büyüktür. Bu multidisipliner çalışmalar bir yandan anlamlı öğrenmeyi beraberinde getirirken, diğer yandan da ekipler arası çalışmayı, kişilerin birikimini arttırmayı geliştirici olması bakımından büyük önem taşımaktadır. Bunun en somut örneğini içinde bulunduğumuz pandemi sürecinde görmek mümkündür. Mart 2020'den bu yana görülen bu Covid süreci sadece sağlık alanını değil, eğitim, ekonomi, psikoloji, sosyoloji, coğrafya, turizm ve birçok disiplini bir perspektif içerisinde ele alınması gerektiğini ortaya çıkarmıştır. İşte bu nedenle her ne kadar adı sosyal bilimler ise de fen ve sağlık bilimleriyle entegre bilimsel çalışmaları bir araya getirmesi açısından ben bu kongreyi ziyadesiyle önemsiyorum. Böyle önemli bir kongrede İzmir Kavram Meslek Yüksekokulumuzun da paydaş olması bizleri onurlandırmıştır. Özellikle birkaç cümlede izninizle İzmir Kavram Meslek Yüksekokulu'ndan bahsetmek istiyorum. Meslek Yüksekokulumuz rektörlüğü olmayan, doğrudan YÖK'e bağlı Türkiye'deki 4 vakıf meslek yüksekokulu'ndan biridir. 29 programı, 103 öğretim elemanı ve 2070 öğrencisiyle eğitim öğretim faaliyetini sürdürmektedir. Özellikle bu kongrede çok sayıda bildirinin olması bu kongrenin zenginliğini, disiplinler arası zenginliğini arttırmaktadır. Ayrıca dijital okuryazarlık, ölçek geliştirme, SSCI dergilerde makale yazımı gibi sunumların yapılacak olması da akademisyenlere bu kongrenin önemli bir açılımını beraberinde getirmektedir. Özellikle bu kongrenin düzenlenmesinde Profesör Doktor Erdoğan Koç hocama, Doçent Doktor Hakan Boz'a, Doçent Doktor Ercan Özen hocalarıma özellikle teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Ayrıca bu kongrede emeği geçen Profesör Doktor Atilla Yüksel hocama, Profesör Doktor Murat Doğdubay hocama, Doktor Esat Saçkes hocama, Doktor Aziz Bostan hocama ve Doktor Elvan Keser hocama da teşekkürlerimi burada sunmak istiyorum. Özellikle tabii bu kongre az önce de belirttiğim gibi birçok disiplinler arası tebliği beraberine getirdi. Ve ayrıca akademisyenlere yönelik bir açılım yaptı. Ama benim bu kongrede çok önemsediğim, özellikle üzerinde durmak istediğim en önemli husus vefa görüşmeleri adı altında burada ikincisi yapılacak olan bölüm. Ben bu konuda vefalı davranışından dolayı Hakan Boz hocama çok teşekkür ediyorum. Burada da vefa konuşmasının öznesi olan Doktor Vedat Yeşilçiçek hocamı saygıyla ve rahmetle anıyorum. Konuşmamı bu vefa konuşmalarının ruhuna uygun olarak bir görselle bitirmek istiyorum izninizle. Görülüyor mu bilmiyorum.
Hocam paylaştınız şu anda ekranınızı.
Paylaştım, evet.
Şu anda paylaşıyoruz ama sadece kendimizi görebiliyoruz.
Nasıl anlayamadım? Görseli görebiliyor musunuz?
Hayır hocam.
Evet.
Ama paylaşmış durumdasınız şu anda ekranınızı.
Evet, bir saniye. Burada bir saniye bir daha deneyeyim. Benim için önemli bulduğum bir paylaşım. Bir saniye. Bir saniye. Bir arkadaşımız geliyor şu anda, özür dilerim. Şunu paylaşımı durdur.
Paylaşacağım şey nerede?
Şimdi göster. Evet. Şu anda görebiliyor muyuz?
Görüyoruz hocam.
Evet, bu sosyal medyada çok beğendiğim bir paylaşım. Kerim Abdülcabbar'ın yıllar öncesi hocasından öğrendiğini, yıllar sonra hocasının elinden tutarak tribünlere getirmesi, bu günün, daha doğrusu bu kongrenin vefa konuşmalarına güzel bir örnek, güzel bir görsel olduğunu düşünüyorum. Vefanın böyle bir şey olduğunu düşünüyorum. Teşekkürler Doçent Doktor Hakan Boz hocam. Herkese başarılar, saygılar, sevgiler. Teşekkürlerim.
Hocam çok teşekkür ederim. Çok anlamlı bir paylaşımda yaptınız. Sağ olun. Evet,
Teşekkürler.
şimdi devam edelim. Thank you, Professor Derman Küçükaltan, for your speech and for your sentimental sharings. Now I would like to invite Professor Murat Doğdubay to make his speech. He's from Balıkesir University. Murat hocam.
Merhaba. Sesle ilgili bir sıkıntımız yok inşallah. Herkese selamlar, saygılar Balıkesir'den. Böyle bir etkinlikte, organizasyonda bulunuyor olmaktan dolayı duyduğum gururu ve onuru paylaşmak isterim öncelikle. Zor şartlarda, bu pandemi şartlarında bile akademik anlamda bir şeyler katıyor olmak, katmaya çalışıyor olmak bile büyük bir onur. En azından bu katılım içerisinde bulunmak büyük bir onur. Bir de distinguished speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and perhaps good evening. My name is Professor Doğdubay from Balıkesir University. Thank you for joining us at the 4th International Applied Social Science Congress. I would like to present my compliments to all academic colleagues participating in opening session. We are very honored, and it's our great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of our hosts, which are Malta University, İzmir Kavram Vocational School, Balıkesir University, and Adnan Menderes University. As it said, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected almost everything in human life. Due to these extraordinary times, Ciasos Congress is having it as first virtual session, although the circumstances are very different, and though this year as academics, we all try to continue to our studies. With these efforts, we are now organizing and joining the 4th International Applied Social Science Congress also. This year, the main theme of the Congress is applicable knowledge for a sustainable future, as you know as. The main goal of Ciasos is to bring together researchers, scientists, and experts in universities, companies, institutions, associations, and societies to provide them a unique platform for sharing worldwide ideas as well as the recent developments on social science. As you see in the Congress program, the scientific results from a wide spectrum of disciplines in social science are on your agenda. We all hope that Ciasos Congress will promote and disseminate the knowledge concerning several topics and related to social science. The current global health crisis showed us the critical contribution of science, technology, and innovation addressing challenges brought about by COVID-19, but also in supporting the society and economy in a time of major turmoil, as you know. Our first ever virtual meeting is a good example. We are all having experience and learning the way of distance and virtual education, study, and all other issues in academic life. Application of Industry 4.0 and also Society 5.0 concepts will probably continue to change human and social science as technology. I hope for all the academical areas which has the ability to adapt to everything before every sector and areas, this period points to process where communication can become versatile and permanent. Technology can be used more and service and quality will be more questionability. And also we must be ready for this today. Lastly, I would like to say that I am very grateful to Congress Organizing Committee I would like to thank the honorary presidents, Mr. Erdogan Koch, Professor Erdogan Koch from Bahçeşehir University, Professor Derman Küçükaltan from İzmir Kavram Vocational School. Also, I would like to thank Congress, you and Presidents Dr. Ercan Özen and Dr. Hakan Boz from Uşak University. Finally, also, I would like to specially thank to all our stakeholders, as you said. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you all a tremendously successful Congress. Thank you very much. Teşekkür ederim.
Sağ olun Murat Hocam. Thank you, Professor Doğdubay. Now, I would like to invite our other Congress partner, Associate Professor Aziz Bostan from Aydın Adnan Menderes University Tourism Faculty, and he is the Vice Dean. Aziz Hocam, şimdi sizi davet etmek istiyorum. Kongre partnerimiz olarak Aydın Adnan Menderes Üniversitesi Turizm Fakültesi Dekan Yardımcımız Doçent Doktor Aziz Bostan.
Çok teşekkür ediyorum Elvan Hocam. Değerli katılımcılar, 4. Uluslararası 1. Ulusal Uygulamalı Sosyal Bilimler Kongresi'ne hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Bu kongrede bir ortak olmanın gururunu ve mutluluğunu yaşamaktayız. İşlerinin yoğunluğu nedeniyle Sayın Rektörümüz Profesör Doktor Osman Selçuk Aldemir katılamadı ama sevgi ve selamlarını iletmemi istedi. O nedenle onların selamlarını ve sevgilerini iletiyorum. Üniversitemiz Aydın Adnan Menderes Üniversitesi 1992 yılında kurulmuş, 28 yıllık bir akademik geçmiş olan genç bir üniversitedir. Üniversitemizde yaklaşık 20 fakülte, 5 yüksekokul, 19 meslek yüksekokulu, 3 enstitü, 36 tane araştırma merkezi bulunan yaklaşık 60.000 öğrenci kapasitesi olan bir üniversitedir. Eğer pandemi olmamış olsaydı bu kongre ev sahipliğini biz yapacaktık. Sizleri Türkiye'nin ilk turizm merkezi olan Kuşadası'nda ağırlamaktan bir mutluluk duyacaktık. Ama maalesef bu mutluluğu şu anda yaşayamadık. İnşallah pandemi sonrası yapılacak ilk kongrede tekrar Kuşadası'nda yapma nasip olur. Özellikle medeniyetler arasında binlerce yıldır kıyasıya bir rekabet ve varlığın sürdürdüğü bir dünyada yaşamaktayız. Medeniyetler arasında rekabetin özellikle yaşadığımız coğrafyada çok daha şiddetli bir şekilde yaşadığını hepimiz bilmekteyiz. Anadolu coğrafyası yüzyılında Hititlerden Filikyalılara, Lidyalılardan Urartulara, Romalılara, Selçuklulara, Osmanlılara ve günümüzde de artık Anadolu milletinin sahibi olan Türkiye Cumhuriyeti biz taşımaktayız. Geçmişteki bu coğrafyada başarılı ve önemli medeniyetler kuran toplumlara bakıldığında medeniyetlerin ortak yanının teknoloji, sanat ve düşünce hayatının sürdürülebilir bir başarıya sahip olduklarını görmekteyiz ve bunu sağlayan toplumlarda başarı zirvelerine çıktığını görmekteyiz. Bununla birlikte geçmişte ülkeler ve medeniyetler arasındaki yaşanan bu rekabetin benzeri günümüzde şirketler arasında yaşanmaktadır. İçinde bulunduğumuz yüzyılda gerek medeniyetlerin gerekse şirketlerin başarısının devam etmesi, varlığını sürdürmesi sürdürülebilir kavramla ilgilidir. Eğer biz bu dünyada tekrar çocuklarımıza, torunlarımıza bu dünyayı miras etmek istiyorsak, bırakmak istiyorsak sürdürülebilir bir dünyanın olması gerekiyor. Bu her alanda olması gerekiyor. Ekonomide, tarımda, bütün sektörlerde. İşte bu sürdürülebilir bir gelecek için uygulanabilir temasıyla gerçekleştirdiğimiz bu kongremizde hem sosyal beşeri bilimler, hem eğitim bilimleri, spor bilimleri, güzel sanatlar, doğa bilimleri, mühendis alanındaki bu bilimsel çalışmaları ve uygulamaları, deneyimleri paylaşmak mümkün olacaktır. Bu nedenle bu kongrenin başarılı olmasını diliyorum. Bu kongrenin gerçekleşmesinde emeği geçen tüm dostlara, arkadaşlara, tabii ki başta Hakan Hocama, Erdoğan Hocama çok teşekkür ediyoruz. İnşallah kongremiz bir dahaki dönemde pandemisiz ve Kuşadası'nda gerçekleştirmek üzere. Hepinize saygı ve selamlar iletiyorum. Teşekkür ederim.
Sağ olun hocam. Thank you, Associate Professor Aziz Bostan from Adnan Menderes University. Evet, şimdi keynote speaker'lara ben alan açmak istiyorum. Ama öncelikle tekrar hocalarımıza, özellikle onur yöneticilerimiz Sayın Profesör Doktor Erdoğan Koç'a ve Profesör Doktor Derman Küçükaltan'a tekrar teşekkür etmek isterim. Ve partnerlerimiz Profesör Doktor Murat Doğdubay'a ve Doçent Doktor Aziz Bostan'a tekrar teşekkür etmek isterim. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to Professor Dr. Erdoğan and Professor Dr. Erdoğan Koç, Professor Dr. Derman Küçükaltan, Professor Dr. Murat Doğdubay, and Associate Professor Aziz Bostan once again. Now let's give some space for the keynote speakers. And I would like to start with Professor Frank Bezina, if I'm not spelling wrong, and Professor Vincent Kasser, for their speech. Their topic is evidence-based management, old wine in new bottles, or a breath of fresh air. Şimdi keynote speakerlarımızdan Profesör Frank Bezina ve Profesör Vincent Kasser konuşmalarını yapacaklar ve başlıkları da evidence-based management, old wine in new bottles, or a breath of fresh air. Yes, professors.
Thank you. Full screen, Vince. Full screen, Vince.
Yes, Vince.
Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure and honor for us to be presenting this keynote speech at the International Applied Social Sciences Congress. Of course, nothing beats the physical presence, and it would have been an immense pleasure for us to be there with you. But these are extraordinary times that necessitate extraordinary measures. We would like to congratulate the conference organizers for their determination in organizing this virtual conference. This keynote speech addresses a central concept, namely evidence-based management, where both me and Professor Kassar are involved in, both from a research perspective and a practitioner perspective. Traditionally, management and managerial decision-making have been linked to the experience that managers have on the job. In fact, one common misconception is related to the fact that experience improves decision-making. The onset of evidence-based management, as we will explain later, is an attempt to put data and evidence at the center of the decision-making process. However, before we delve into the subject, allow us to explain how evidence-based management originated.
So thank you, Frank, and allow me, together with Frank, congratulating the organizers. It's a pretty tough job to organize something virtual. So well done. Yes, we can say that evidence-based management finds its origins in these two persons here. They're actually managers, they're actually physicians, doctors at the McMaster Medical School in Canada. And back in the 1990s, both David Sackett and Gordon Goyette weren't very kind of enthusiastic about the way medicine was being taught to students at medical schools. So they thought they would revolutionize it or change it. And the reason was because they considered it to be too prescriptive. The pedagogical model being adopted for teaching medicine was too prescriptive, and it would not allow students to think critically about the subject matter. And obviously this led to very often poor decisions in diagnosis, identification of health conditions. And they therefore changed this, and they considered of adopting a new way of teaching, a new way of thinking about the discipline. Basically, to evaluate all the bits of information, evidence, data that one collects from patients and makes a kind of a critical evaluation, a critical analysis of the evidence coming in. And this was in many ways the birth of evidence-based medicine. Now, obviously, it wasn't easy. Nowadays, evidence-based medicine is probably kind of a very popular or more acceptable way to teach medicine, and obviously this found its way in other fields, like in evidence-based education and in evidence-based public policy and so on and so forth. However, it wasn't before 2010 that Professor Denise Rousseau, a colleague and friend of ours from Carnegie Mellon University in Pennsylvania, actually penned an article in the American Academy of Management, where she set the first ideas clear about taking what we had learned from evidence-based medicine and applying it to management. In other words, it was the start of a new paradigm about thinking of management education, and that the formation of our students in the management sciences, rather than to provide them with the information, but give them the opportunity to think critically about the information, about the evidence, which obviously would result into improved decision-making quality. And in fact, Denise and many others, colleagues like Rob Reiner, Eric Behrens, set up the so-called Center for Evidence-Based Management, of which I'm also a fellow. The center is nowadays comprising of around 400, 500 scholars worldwide, and it boasts to have both practitioners and academics. And basically, the role of our keynote is to share with you some of the ideas centering around evidence-based management.
So, the underlying principles of evidence-based management are two. First is to validate management knowledge. Knowledge in management is not always necessarily valid, and research studies have confirmed this position. For example, Maslow's theory keeps receiving prominence, yet there are many areas of concern about its validity. Second, evidence-based management is about applying and implementing what we know. In other words, the scientist-practitioner approach. So, what is evidence? Evidence is information in any format. It could be words, numbers, or qualitative documentation. In fact, it is often being quoted that today, data is more valuable than oil. In the field of management, managers are often dealing with complex and uncertain environments, which entail that they have to be more sensitive to the use of evidence in their decision making. There is consensus in evidence-based management that evidence originates mainly from 4 sources.
Yes, and it's these 4 sources that we now turn to. There is some kind of acknowledgement that when we speak of evidence and the sources of evidence, we're referring to 4 principal sources. Now, each of these sources are not without their limitations, of course, but they are all important sources that even in management education and management training, students should be able to consider. Let's take a quick look at each one of them. So first you have the professional experience and judgment. Yes, certainly we cannot throw away the professional experience and the professional judgments that seasoned managers have. We all have our mental models of reality of the world, and obviously there's a lot of right in those models, a lot of things to share, but obviously that's not the only source of information. There are also scientific research and scientific outcomes. Science and management research does provide a huge body of knowledge that researchers and academics and practitioners above all must be able to use in improving the standard of their quality decisions. Then there's also the data. There's a lot of data that companies have, they collect. Many companies, as you know, sit on data. It's a question of trying to understand the patterns, the meaningful patterns in that data. So that's another big source of data, of evidence that managers need to make use of in evaluating their decisions. And finally, there are the stakeholders, because decision-making processes are not set in a vacuum. They are certainly influenced by other stakeholders, and therefore there are issues of power, there's issue of authority, there's issue of who is in support of your decision versus who's not. Therefore, there's a lot of skill that comes into handling the stakeholder influence in utilizing the data from the source. Now, all these 4 sources put together, right, create a better quality decision platform. But none of these sources are in themselves reliable alone, and obviously each have their own difficulties. For example, in terms of professional judgment, we all have our biases, and sometimes these biases do lead us to engage into errors. Even scientific research has its own biases. So, for instance, publication biases. Why do certain papers appear, others don't, and so on and so forth. Stakeholders have their limitations as well. Sometimes people might want to detract data from person seeking it for other reasons, due to, I don't know, power or other reasons. And even organizational data. There's a question of how valid the company brings that data, and how valid the figures and the facts presented by the company are to the decision-making quality. So the whole idea here is that the decision maker in the training of management students in adopting an evidence-based approach is to seek all of these sources of data and be aware from a critical perspective of the limitations attributable to each source. Now, as you can see there, there's also the 6 A's, and I think I'll just go through these very quickly. The whole essence of evidence-based management is to make people think and question, rather than accept facts for what they are, or accept theories because so many previous researchers have quoted them, therefore they become real. The idea is to make managers and even students and decision makers think critically about the data they have at hand. And therefore, for each data source and every source of evidence that emanates from each of the sources, we have a process called the 6 A's. So the first one is asking. Asking is about what is the question? What is the issue, right? You can't really evaluate a problem before you really know what the problem is. So obviously one has to ask about the question. Then obviously it requires acquiring the data. And unfortunately, some research, and including ours, actually shows that when it comes to acquisition of data, many managers rely on, I don't know, these guru type of information or these fads, if you may allow me. So acquiring the information and seeking the right information is also a skill itself. Then obviously one has to weigh it, right? One has to give it value, appraise that information, that evidence, before putting and pulling all the bits of evidence together to try to create a picture of what the real information is, of what the real situation is, and then applying it, and then obviously assessing it. And what these skills do is essentially they increase the likelihood of a favorable outcome. As Frank has said, nowadays organizations are dealing with very complex realities, and there are no simple solutions to very complex problems. So obviously one has to have a very critical mind to undo and unpack that problem and see what are the best piece of data and evidence that one can insert in trying to provide a plausible way forward, and therefore decreasing the chances of having negative consequences. So basically, if you may allow me, this is more or less the official, if you like, definition set by Denise and others, by Behrens and Reiner, about what evidence-based management is. And it's about making decisions through the conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of the best available evidence from multiple sources. And the key words and the emphasis here is about making decisions, right? Because I always tell students that you get paid to make decisions, right? Not to look smart and all that. That's important. But obviously, at the end of the day, you employ executives, and we're training management students to be able to help them make better decisions for the clients and companies they work for. And evidence-based management is about making decisions through the conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of that available evidence. So conscientious, obviously, one has to be aware and be able to understand the validity of the data that one is utilizing in trying to understand a complex situation. Explicit, because the data must be it must be real, it must be accessible, and judicious, because at the end of the day, it's always a personal judgment. So one's personal expertise has to connect with the data coming from all the other sources and make a very, I would say, rational way of thinking in trying to adopt the best way forward. Obviously, using all the data available from all sources, the multiple sources, the 4 sources that we refer to.
Okay, so some of you may recall the Hudson River incident, when a plane managed to glide on the Hudson River after being struck by a flock of birds. Although all the engine power was lost, all the 155 passengers on board survived. We consider this to be a very good case study of the use or application of evidence-based management. So, what is special about the captain? Why did the captain make the headlines? First of all, Sally Sullenberger is a researcher on catastrophic risk management and managed to use all his scientific background in his decision-making process. Apart from that, he has been a major contributor on accident investigations, and hence he knew exactly the facts surrounding the phenomenon of air crashes. being a very experienced captain, he was well aware of the kinds of decision he needed to take and how to apply his expertise, and did his best not to fall for biases. The last thing was to ensure that the passengers were composed and did not overreact or panic, so that the aeroplane glided safely on the river. This is a very good example on how evidence-based driven leaders use all their data from all the available sources to make effective decisions. Now, I will quote the captain directly from his own words. This is what he said. One way of looking at this might be that for 42 years, I've been making small, regular deposits in this bank of experience, education, and training. And on January 15, the balance was sufficient so that I could make a very large withdrawal.
So, in many ways, therefore, the experience of Sully and is a example, it's a living example of, as Frank has said, the captain used all the sources of data and all the bits of evidence from his scientific understanding of air crashes, from the reaction of his passengers, his stakeholders, from his judgment about the situation, and all the data that was on board. So using all the four sources was one of the reasons why Sully actually made a good landing on the Hudson River. Now, obviously, we're not going to make many Sullys here, and probably it's difficult to repeat that maneuver. But the point that we're trying to make here is that we have been trying for the last few years, trying to push new evidence-based management habits into our own teaching and into our own education, and also trying to support students rather than remember what we teach them, but to think critically about what we impart to them. And I think I'd like to share with you a few evidence-based management habits that we also use in some of our own classes, and also in some of our own management training programs. The first one is getting evidence into the conversation. I think research has shown, and it's not just research that we have conducted both in Malta, Croatia, Poland, but there's also a lot of research in Holland, States, Canada, which shows that very often managers don't have time to think, let alone search for the evidence. Therefore, they would rely on gut feelings or on what other companies have done. So one thing that we often teach, and even part of the center's approach, is to try and get people understand, how do you get the evidence? What is evidence, right? What are the sources of the evidence? What are the limitations of these sources? That's the first thing. Second is that we try and impart the importance of evidence into areas of practice. As Frank earlier said, the whole notion of scientist practitioner is that it's not about what you learn that counts, but it's what you learn, whether it's valid and whether it can be translated into something in an area of practice. And I'll give you a very practical example. If you think about how can I translate Maslow's theory into a work policy, that's one question. The other question would be, how can I translate goal-setting theory, another theory of motivation, into practice? Now, most people would have heard of Maslow much more than goal-setting theory. But in actual fact, if you look at the evidence, you realize that there's a lot of more applications of goal-setting theory into practice than actually Maslow's. So obviously, it's about learning and teaching the evidence that can be translated into improved areas of practice. The third is, as I said, is the learning how to gather evidence and to know and identify the blind spots into the various elements of evidence. So it's about searching, it's about critically appraising that information, it's about avoiding or explicitly stating one's assumptions. Frank might want to say something about this, but his research about statistical misconception actually shows that even some people who pride themselves to be teaching research methods and statistics do fall for a lot of statistical misconceptions because they assume a lot of things in their own analysis. The fourth habit is becoming decision aware. So it's also about creating an understanding of what is the probability of me taking the right course of action, limiting risk, and increasing the chances of success, considering all the evidence I have collected. What also determines a good decision, right? So obviously this is something as we push very much into evidence-based management. And the last one is the reflection on decisions' ethical implications. When we come to ethical issues and stakeholder issues, the importance here is about where do we weigh between influence and power? Where do we weigh our approach to going forward and standing back before we introduce new ideas, new systems, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so this brings us to the conclusion, and so we come back to our initial question. So, is evidence-based management old wine in new bottles? Our short presentation, hopefully, sought to convince you, conference delegates, to consider improving management education by helping students moving away from prescriptive models and developing an inquisitive and critical mindset intended to improve decision quality. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Professor Bezina and Professor Kassar.
Kassar,
Thank
yes.
you.
I'm sorry?
I said it's Kassar, yes, you pronounced it well. All right.
Thank you, thank you. Teşekkür ediyoruz Profesör Bezina'ya ve Profesör Kassar'a yaptıkları sunum için. Sunum kanıta dayalı karar verme sürecini anlatıyordu ve bir filmi de içine barındıran bir sunum vardı. Çok zevkli dinledik. Thank you very much. And I remember watching the Sally movie. It was a Hollywood production.
Yes,
It was a very nice movie. Yeah, I remember that. Thank you very much.
welcome.
All right. Okay, let's move on to the next keynote speaker. Dr. Paniel Osberto Reyes Sardenas. Am I spelling right?
Yeah, that's
Doctor?
lovely.
Good, I'm glad. Okay, Dr. Sardenas is from Mexico, University of Popular Autónoma de Estado de Pablo.
Very good, very good. Excellent.
Yes, doctor. Thanks for letting me practice my Spanish.
I'm trying to share my presentation now. Could you let me know if you can see it?
It's on the screen. Would you like to share it in a bigger screen, maybe?
Well, I wanted to do the slideshow, but I just realized that if I do that, I cannot see you. So I can get to see your actions and
Okay, maybe you can fit it on the screen, which I'm trying to tell.
can you read it now?
Yes, perfect.
Excellent. Okay. Good, good, good. We're all set now. Can you hear me all right then? Yes. Good, good, good. Excellent. Well, thank you ever so much for the invitation. I obviously have to say a word of thanks. First things first, I want to see if I managed to say it properly. Turkey merhaba. Okay, so trying to say good day, good afternoon, whatever it is over there. Over here is really early in the morning, so you cannot see me, but I'll probably be on my pajamas underneath this. So it's because it's very early here. It's I got up around 4 a.m. here, so you probably see me a little bit sleepy, but I do have a good share of coffee, so it will be good to, just good to go. Just wondering, really quick question. I have about 20 to 30 minutes to speak. Is that all right?
I think it's perfectly fine.
Okay. Just for you, please give me a little nudge, just to know that I am approaching the end of 20 minutes or something like that, so I can wrap it up.
Sure.
Okay. So first things first, I just want to say a massive thanks, teşekkür ederim, to my dear friends Hakan, Erkan, Professor Erdogan. It's been, well, I was really looking forward to see you this year in the flesh, but of course, all hell broke loose with this pandemic. But I am really impressed by the resilience of the committee, and it's just been amazing what they've done, and they have pulled out organizing this fantastic congress. So I'm really very honored to be a keynote speaker for this congress. I don't feel I kind of deserve such a big honor, but I appreciate it very much. And they asked me to do a little musical presentations toward the end. So I give it a try, but I hope this doesn't disappoint you. Anyway, well, I'll kick off now. Well, first, so my talk will be about inquiry and epistemology, which is a branch of philosophy. And as many of you know, I mean, in a way, I am really glad that I heard the dear professors from Malta first, because actually it connects really nicely with what I'm going to say. So this idea of being sensitive to the evidence, rather than having our preconceptions and impose them in reality, this is the kind of talk this is going to be. But of course, what we try to do in philosophy and epistemology in particular is to give a systematic account of how to be sensitive to the evidence, how to be sensitive to what counts as knowledge. So I wrote a little paper about this, and what I'm going to present you now is actually something that follows from that inquiry. And just a quick word, by the way, I do have very fond memories of Malta. I stayed in Birkirkara, near Valletta. Beautiful place. Oh, I really want to come back one day. Beautiful, amazing. And last year I was in Istanbul and Antalya, and also it was amazing. So I'm stuck here in Mexico, in Puebla, Mexico. Anyway, so the talk will present a few just small points, really. I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but I think we have enough to have an interesting talk. We have enough to have an interesting approach to what epistemology has to offer to social sciences, because this is a congress of social sciences. It's becoming a very famous congress thanks to the effort of our friends. It's starting to be very well known around the world, and of course one has to ask, how can you like having to deal with scientific inquiry leads you to ask big questions, and the bigger the question goes, the more philosophical it becomes. So part of what I'm going to present you is how philosophy can come to aid and to help social sciences to achieve their aims and their goals. So that's why I wrote this presentation that is actually about inquiry and about knowledge and about how philosophical control of a process of inquiry and how a redefinition and change of paradigm about knowledge can make us a little bit more sensitive to context and can help the preparation, the formation of a scientific character. All right. So many of the sciences that are present in this conference are they have a program, a curriculum to go in the university programs. Isn't that right? So what sometimes many of these different approaches to social sciences, scientific inquiry in general, they include courses that come from a more rounded philosophy sort of area, sort of formative courses, and to integrate better the knowledge. And many of them, I don't know if all of them, but so many of them, at least in England and Mexico, for what I can see, my small experience, they do have a subject of epistemology. They have at least one or two courses of epistemology. But unfortunately, I mean, philosophers, we don't help our cause very well. You know, we're not very good at. We're not like Hakan. That he's very good at, marketing. And philosophers, we are not very good at it. But why? Because sometimes when we have this precious opportunity to help other disciplines to thrive in their own areas, what we do instead is we give a very sort of dense program loaded with philosophical questions that are legitimate and interesting, but not exactly what they need for formation in their, cognitive and epistemological character in order to be good inquirers in their own subjects. So what we do sometimes is, if you open any sort of general book in epistemology, you quickly will see that knowledge can be defined as justified through belief. And by being defined this way, what we focus on is in the process of justification that has achieved any particular belief and proposition. And this is all jolly and good, but is not precisely what the student needs in order to connect this knowledge or this conception of knowledge with what they do. So, for example, when they have this sort of, they receive from philosophers this information. Knowledge is justified through belief. But then, quickly enough, we philosophers move into how to question this and whether the process of justification has enough scope. And one of the first things that we start telling the students are stuff about skepticism. So many of these courses lead the students to start questioning themselves about the reliability of knowledge, or the reliability of what they know. So, for example, just to give you a hint of what we do, philosophers, in these courses, I'll give you an example. Let's do a little thought experiment. Now that we are far apart from each other, maybe we will get connected with a thought experiment. I'll give it a sip to this. So, imagine. Well, I'm going to ask you a question. How do you know you're not? Perhaps just like me, that had to get up really early for this conference, which I enjoyed. I'm not complaining. Perhaps where you are is a bit late now, etc. We don't know, but maybe it's just the day before the conference and you are dreaming you are in the conference already. And how do you know you're not dreaming right now? And you could say, oh, well, okay, I will pinch myself or slap my face or something like that, and then I will know I'm not sleeping, I'm not dreaming. But you could do that in a dream and still be in the dream, isn't it? And this goes on and on. So what we basically do in philosophy sometimes in epistemology courses is make students a little bit paranoid about whether the reality is real, whether they're in the matrix or things like that. And this is all very interesting. This is all very philosophically interesting, but in reality, it doesn't really help very much students to integrate this knowledge or this idea of knowledge to their cognitive and epistemological characters. In other words, it doesn't give them tools to grow and flourish in the process of inquiry in their own disciplines. And that's my concern, to be honest. I have given epistemology courses to students from other areas, and I've been trying to avoid that route because I think we should change the paradigm. In my opinion, we should this talk purposes to address colleagues not only coming from philosophy, which is sometimes our mistake, but that want epistemology to be an effective boost in our pursuit of thriving different social and experimental sciences. So in other words, what I'm trying to say to you is that I try to offer you a paradigm of knowledge, a different conception of knowledge that helps you to connect better with reality, and that helps you to connect better with what you want to inquire in your own social science, in your own area of knowledge. That's why I think it connects really nicely with evidence-based inquiry or evidence-based management, evidence-based social science, psychology, etc., etc. In epistemology, we normally distinguish in between two approaches to epistemology. One of them that I described already is the context of justification. So an epistemology course focused in justification will try to evaluate acquired belief. In other words, the beliefs that I already have, I want to know if they are reliable. I want to know if they count as knowledge or if they're just opinions, etc., etc. And then epistemology becomes a sort of inquiry into justification. But the funny thing about that epistemology approach is that this approach is focused in the past, in the beliefs I already have, in the beliefs I already have in psychology, and the beliefs I already have in chemistry, etc., etc. But it doesn't really help much when you want to help the student of the person to flourish in future inquiry. So that's why there's another paradigm, another context of courses of epistemology that I will call, following 20th century philosopher called Hans Reichenbach. He did this distinction, context of discovery. So epistemology, as conceived in the context of discovery, privileges the role that knowledge plays in inquiry, meaning that the priority is not in the justification of a given belief, but how this belief is fixed through activities of a self-controlled approach to knowing action. In other words, what we want to do is change the orientation, to change the focus of epistemology, not to the past, not to the beliefs I already have, but to the future, to the beliefs I want to form by moving myself in the process of growing knowledge. But of course, one of the things we have to ask ourselves, and I think this matches really nicely with what Professor Betzina said before, is we could ask all sorts of questions. You know, we have nowadays, you know, like he said, we hit any entry in Google or in any other research engine, and thousands upon thousands of, you know, bits of information pop up, and this could be really a privilege of our era, or a privilege of our time, but it doesn't mean is healthy for the, you know, for helping us flourishing in self-control inquiry. Why not? Because we could get intoxicated with so much information. It's so much information that we cannot deal with, and it's insane amounts of data that instead of perhaps answering our questions, just postpones the act of questioning or the act of integrating that as knowledge into our experience. So what I want to say with this is that inquiry is not an activity that comes up just simply by looking at information. Inquiry is getting immersed in experience, in the different universes of our own experience, or the experience of our social sciences, or of our area of knowledge imposes onto us. And just to give you a funny example, maybe bear with me. I know my examples are not very good, but bear with me with this one. You know what tickles are, right? When you come to somebody, want to make him laugh or make her laugh, and make the tickles, and then the person, if he's sensitive, will feel the tickles and will laugh. My brother is very sensitive to tickles, etc. But funny thing about tickles, if I tickle myself, let's do an experiment, I don't laugh. Why not? Because it's something that is not imposed by reality. In order to laugh about the tickles, somebody else needs to do it to you, and quite unexpectedly, actually. If you do it, but if you plan to do it that by yourself, it won't work. And the same happens with inquiry. Inquiry is an irritation or some kind of motivation to get into the path of knowledge that reality imposes into us. So we discover mysteries in reality, we discover challenges in reality, we discover situations that are undetermined, and we want to put ourselves in the way of solve these problems, of resolve our problems by a controlled process that we can monitor at any time, that we call inquiry. Okay, so that's what context of discovery is a process of conceiving knowledge not as a justified true belief piece of information, but more as a process, a self-control process that is rendered by beliefs that start answering our interaction with inquiry. In other words, and just to be very brief now, like John Dewey, a pragmatic philosopher, used to say, our connection with experience must be organic and self-controlled. And knowledge is actually the result of habits of interaction with reality. So a belief, instead of being a knowledge, a piece of knowledge, instead of being defined as a justified belief, a piece of information that is qualified as good, we want to think about it as a habit of action, as a successful habit that has connected us in the past organically and nicely with experience. And that's why our sciences are a tradition of habits of action that teaches us has to interact with a certain kind of aspect of reality, a chemical aspect of reality, a financial aspect of reality, an economic aspect of reality, an educational aspect of reality, and so on and so forth. So epistemology, oriented to action in inquiry, is kind of the center of the context of discovery. When we want to know whether certain hypotheses, for example, are the best available explanation about a given conundrum, we need to be able to project the courses of action of those hypotheses. Inquiry, then, we define it, proceeds both theoretically and practically. So when we want to think about what is inquiry, well, it's a process of discovery, and is oriented to a goal, which is solve a problem, solve a situation, determine a situation that is undetermined. Or it could be theoretical, or it could be practical. It doesn't necessarily have to be practical. For example, I do my main area of research in philosophy, in my case, is philosophy of mathematics, and I'm very excited all the time by mathematical conundrums. And you will say, well, that's really far away from practice. That's really far away from applied sciences. But it isn't. Why not? Because it's a universe of our experience, not necessarily of our practical experience, of our day-by-day experience, but it's a universe of our experience in the endeavors of our minds. So it's something different to us. In other words, for example, in mathematics, we don't invent mathematics. We discover mathematics. When we inquire into mathematics, we try to unveil something that is a hidden reality of the theoretical experience. So it's a process of inquiry as well. But also that can also match really nicely with another situation that is completely practical. So for example, at this very moment, many centers of research in pharmaceutical companies, universities, etc., are seeking for a cure or a vaccine for COVID-19 and things like that. And it's a genuine conundrum that reality imposes into you. Because if it was simply an act of the will, we will say, well, I don't believe the virus exists, but that won't make the virus disappear. Because we need to have a self-control process to tackle the problem. And what we have to do with that is acquire knowledge, acquire habits of knowledge, and find effective ways of interacting organically with that reality in order to solve the problem of finding a cure or a vaccine. So what we do when we inquire then, we establish possible scenarios of our courses of action, and then we experiment with them in the possibilities of interaction that are actually scenarios have to offer to us. Okay. So what is, well, we said already that inquiry is this goal-directed activity, and knowledge will be the way of answering these questions that reality imposes into us. So the cognitive goal of this activity, namely inquiry, is establish a successful habit of action with reality. But how do we do that? And my response to that is that we have a way to control our inquiry, monitor inquiry, to be aware of what we do in our cognitive decisions at any given time by questioning. Questions are actually an instrument. Let's think about them as tools. So by focusing on inquiry as the center of epistemology and our activities, we let the paradigm of epistemology change. We said that already. Such change can be a key to a new and liberating focus to traditional epistemological issues. And a goal is a state in which a belief is settled only if the issue that was prompted by inquiry is satisfactorily captured in the achievement of the goal. So the pursuit of knowledge is then a goal that can make knowledge salient if and only if is the result of self-controlled inquiry. The goals of inquiry reformulate what it means for a belief to be knowledge and what it means for a belief to be true. Having goals then helps us to monitor our progress and inquiry in a self-controlled manner, and I believe that the best way in which that control can be expressed is through the use of questions that reveal our progress. So what questions I am talking about? Well, we can have different approaches to questioning. So, for example, let's think about, I don't know if you like this, I generally really like mystery series or mystery novels, etc., etc. And I really like the ways that represent a self-control process of finding an answer to a problem. And obviously, one of the most classical ones are Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes, which probably all of you know already. So there's an episode in one of Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. I don't know if it's the Hounds of Baskerville or one of them. I can't quite remember which one of them. But there's a very funny observation by Watson. If you remember, Sherlock is, the main character, the one who is the main inspector and detective, and Watson is his assistant, and Watson is a medical doctor, a physician. So when there are some episodes that are very funny because sometimes Watson makes an observation about something that Sherlock doesn't know, and it's very funny. It almost seems quite rude, but it's not. And the example is this: for example, they are looking at a murder scene, murder scenario, and in this place there is a book about a story that is probably very famous at the time, about a romantic novel. And says, and Watson says to Sherlock, "Did you know that that novel is the most famous novel right now among the youngsters? It could be the Twilight of today or something like that." And Sherlock responds, "No, I didn't know, and I hope I can forget it soon." So because it's not information I want to know. If you see what I mean, it's part of what we have to do in inquiry. We can learn a lot of different things, and a lot of different focuses can be in our inquiry. But in order to succeed in inquiry, we need to focus into a goal, because having a lot of interesting information that doesn't help to achieve the goal is not good for inquiry. So we could be encyclopedic. We can know all sorts of details about a lot of things, but that doesn't necessarily mean we are in the path to find an answer to a problem. For example, I can be very, very good to memorize things or memorize details, but if I don't discriminate the details that are important, my process of inquiry is not growing in a self-controlled way. Okay, well, sorry. I expanded too much on that, but what I want to say actually is that questions, doing good questions, not only the questioning in general, but doing good questions, is a good indicator of the self-control I'm talking about in the process of finding an answer to a conundrum, to a problem that reality imposes into us. So I have 3 cognitive tasks here that could help us to realize if we are in a process of self-control inquiry. Number 1, questions should point towards an answer that corresponds to the space prefigured in the structure of the question. In other words, a question should point you to something that you already have some information about. So you have already a way to recognize if what you find is the answer or not. So questions render information that is relevant, discriminate what information is relevant and what information it isn't. Second, when we question, we see part of the strategies that we apply to understand a given situation. So question is a way of planning what you're going to do next if you find the answer. And a good question is, number 3, a question well formulated will connect a prompt with further questions. A good question is the question that gives you more questions. Gives you more, once you find the answer, that prompts a different question that puts you in the same path. And this is a way of having self-control when we do inquiry.
Professor Sardena.
Yes?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's been
yes.
a bit more than 20 minutes.
Okay. So I have about, could I have 5 minutes more? And I'll
Sure.
Okay. So when we try to find the relevant context to the beliefs that are relevant in order to carry on the pursuit of inquiry, we need to evaluate if our epistemic character is the appropriate in that fixation and settlement of a given belief. And I have dedicated some of my research time to treasure a philosophical tradition called Pragmatism. Pragmatism was a philosophical tradition mainly created in the United States. It's an American tradition of thought. But people sometimes mistake pragmatism for utilitarianism, and they are not the same. Pragmatism is a philosophy that privileges the practical and real consequences of concepts in terms of action, habits of action. So the creator of pragmatism is a 19th century philosopher, chemist, and creator, inventor of a lot of things, inventor of semiotics, that is, whose name is Charles Sanders Peirce. There's a celebrated essay by Peirce that is called The Fixation of Belief. And I quoted that article of 1878 because it's a very interesting way of helping us to see when we are sensitive to context and when we are not choosing to follow the method of inquiry and experience as a norm of our inquiry. So he, just to be very, very brief, because my time is running out, he presents us with three methods. The method of tenacity, the method of authority, and what he calls the a priori method. There are three methods that are biased, not to evidence. They're not sensitive to evidence. Tenacity is holding up to a belief you already have because you like it or because you want to have it, but in spite of the evidence. So it makes you insensitive to evidence or to reality. The method of authority, well, it's very well known in political context, means that I will impose into you what you're going to believe. And sometimes that people who are in education, we really like that method of imposing into others what they have to believe. But then again, this doesn't help the person that acquires that belief and settles that belief to connect it with reality at all. And what Peirce calls the a priori method is a way of finding something that is agreeable to what you want to believe and is agreeable to your previous beliefs, but again, doesn't connect with reality. Is what you want to believe because it matches your preference really nicely. As opposed to all these methods, Peirce proposes what he calls the method of science. And let's not mistake this for what the positivist says, the scientific method. That's a different thing. The method of science is basically being open to experience, being open to what independent experience imposes into us in spite of our beliefs. So it's a way to be aware that reality can surprise us. But of course, this method of science includes three activities of inference that help us to make a controlled way to approach that reality. Because it's not only that reality imposes things on you, it's also that you, in order to understand them, you have to have cognitive tasks, activities of thinking, of thought, that will help you to unravel what that means of what is going on or what is happening with successful habits of action. How do we do these habits of actions? Very quickly, I will say just this is the end. We can have three ways of approaching inference, considering these three ways of making inferences. So the method of science is included of three forms of inference. First is abduction, which is the making of conjectures and creating hypotheses. Second is deduction, which is the inferring of what should be the case if these hypotheses are the case. And third is induction, or the moment of the testing of hypotheses by ways of observation of some kind. So very, very briefly, what I'm trying to say in this talk is, well, let's make epistemology not only in a discussion of philosophy, that is interesting only while we're talking about it, but let's make it an efficient way of helping other disciplines to thrive, to achieve progress in their own areas. And a way of doing that is changing the focus of epistemology to future inquiry, to goal-oriented inquiry. And by doing that, we give self-control in this process, awareness of the process. So that's the proposal. I hope you didn't get too bored. So I will say teşekkür ederim. If I don't know if I said it right. And if you don't have any questions, I have a little special final treat for you. That that I know that some members of the committee, Erkan and Hakan and Professor Erdogan, wanted to hear from me singing, which is a song that I didn't know that is called Bella Ciao. So I don't know if should I sing it now or just wait till the end of the presentations.
I think it's a great moment to sing now.
Well, that way I won't have to deal with questions.
Panier, this is the time.
All right. Well, should I? And then I'm just gonna stop sharing my presentation then, and I'll bring my guitar. Oh gosh, I'm a bit embarrassed, to be honest. I'm glad that my camera is not very good because you will see I'm all blushed in red. So here it goes. So this is my first time ever singing an Italian song. So pardon the pronunciation, it might not be very good. Okay, well, here we go. I'm a bit embarrassed, but who will see this? Half of the world, anyway. Okay. So this is for my friends Hakan and Erkan. So it goes like this, I think. Una mattina son svegliato. Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi son svegliato e ho trovato il passo. Partigiamo, portami via. Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao. Partigiamo, portami via. E mi sento di morire. Si muoio, partigiano. Oh, bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Venire lassù in montagna, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao, e seppellire lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di un bel fiore, e le genti passeranno, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao,
Ciao.
e le genti che passeranno ti diranno che bel fiore, e questo è il fiore del partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao,
Ciao.
il fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà. Well, that's it. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Professor Ciasos, great song, great presentation.
I hope you didn't get too bored. You woke up with the song.
It was lovely. It was lovely.
Thank you so much. Well, I don't know if there's space for questions or we leave that for another time.
We can always have, space for questions and answers. Anybody would like to have a say? I think singing made it impossible to ask questions now.
Okay.
You probably did it on purpose.
Well, I actually didn't. I was very embarrassed to sing, but I only did it because my friends wanted to hear it.
Okay, thank you very much again.
Thank you so much for listening and for your interest in these topics.
Let's continue with our last but not least keynote speaker, Professor Professor Coşkun Küçüközmen. He's from İzmir Economy University, and he'll be talking about artificial intelligence and future of financial services. Şimdi konuşmasını yapmak üzere Profesör Doktor Coşkun Küçüközmen'i davet etmek istiyorum. Kendisi İzmir Ekonomi Üniversitesi'nde ve yapacağı konuşmada yapay zeka ve gelecekteki finansal hizmetlerle ilgili olacak. Hocam buyurun.
Thank you very much. If I happen to share my slides at the moment, I will be very happy, and probably it will be okay within a minute, within a second, I hope. Is there anything that I could do? Probably it's okay, right? Thank you. First of all, I would like to tell you something a little bit different, keynote speech style. First, I'm planning to make a speech. I'm trying to deliver a talk about artificial intelligence, then the slides, if possible. And probably I have 20 minutes, Elvan Hocam, right? Or more than 20 minutes?
If you need more time, we'll be happy to listen to you.
Yeah, I will maybe in need of a little bit more time. Thank you very much. First, my speech. Distinguished members of the academic society, it's a great honor for me to deliver my speech before a group of academicians, market practitioners, and students. And I feel myself privileged for having me. We are the host. Being host means patience and understanding. Traditional Turkish behavior is very simple. Guest first, and the guests deserve the best. So we wish we could have gathered here in Izmir. And we wish we didn't have pandemics. And then we would have sun, sea, and the sand, and visiting Ephesus, the historical remains, and getting inspired by Ciasos Library. Probably you all heard of Ciasos Library in Ephesus. And it's one of the most beautiful structures in Ephesus and was built in 117 AD. It was a monumental tomb for Ciasos, the governor of province of Asia. And the grave of Ciasos was beneath the ground floor across the entrance, and there was a statue of Athena over it, because Athena was the goddess of wisdom. The statues in the niches of the columns today are the copies of the originals. The statues symbolize wisdom, in Latin Sophia, knowledge, episteme, intelligence, enoia, and excellence, arete. These are the virtues of Ciasos. Today, I will talk about artificial intelligence within the context of future of financial services. Artificial intelligence have knowledge, intelligence, excellence, but I'm not sure that artificial intelligence has wisdom. Following my talk, I'm going to make a small presentation, because this is not a very common thing, but I preferred a separate moment because there are some graphs in my presentation that needs to be explained in detail. And I don't want my slides move. I don't know if is it possible to stop them. I think it shouldn't move. Anyway, okay, I'm going to go on my speech. Before I start my talk, I would like to take you to year 2010. Let's go back to year 2010. Famous Davos meetings. And in the meetings, the theme was shared norms for reality. This means that we are living in a world that is becoming increasingly complex, interconnected, and at the same time, experiencing an erosion of common values and principles. And this undermines the public trust, leadership, as well as future economic growth and political stability. Some 10 years ago, Davos meetings pointed out this issue, but today we are definitely having the situation described 10 years ago. And now we have global power shifts. 10 years ago, we were not talking about China, but today we talk China almost in every aspect of our life. And now we are talking economic uncertainty. 10 years ago, the Davos meetings pointed out economic uncertainty, resource scarcity, and institutional weakness. We mentioned interconnectedness above. Today, global interconnectedness means that it's impossible for any stakeholder to address the challenges in isolation. Leadership today means navigating a larger, more complex set of issues and more complicated relationships. Today, we witness a change at an unexpected speed, and now communicated in an entirely different language compared to 10 years ago. The words, the concepts, the expressions we use today were not even pronounced by anyone. We have a language of WhatsApp. We have a language of applications. We have a language of artificial intelligence. You know, there's so many. The leading fields of this, course of technology, we have information technology and mobile technology. And we carry whole world in our mobiles, whole world with our mobile, with our smartphones. And remember, in the live broadcasts, there were tens of vehicles, satellite dishes, Today, just smartphone may broadcast virtually from anywhere in the earth. Probably you all watch Netflix, right? You remember the series Homeland? There was a, anchor person, then he became the fugitive and illegally and destructively broadcasting without a trace. And I don't want to talk about the Black Mirror, if you have watched it. These are really good examples of what's happening in the world of artificial intelligence. So this process accelerated the growth of digital economy. The World Economic Forum and the Group of 20 have defined digital economy in a way that, what is digital economy? It's a broad range of activities that use digitized information and knowledge as the key factors of production, and modern information networks as an important activity space, as well as information and communications technology to drive productivity growth. And when it comes to Asia, there is no one Asia. Economies are vastly different between Japan, Korea, versus China, Indonesia, and India. One of the common myths is people think that developing Asia is behind in digital, and I think it's in fact the other way around. The poor legacy in these developing Asian markets, whether it's IT or digital penetration, or the traditional retail banking infrastructure, often means that digital is a great opportunity for the country to leapfrog. If you have missed economic growth, you can at least catch the digital growth. Okay. And Southeast Asia digital economy was $31 billion in 2015, but it's estimated more than 200 billion next year. Okay. And I want to cite from the same source again. Traditional economic development was slowing down. Digital economy, represented by a new generation of technologies such as internet and mobile technologies, big data analytics, and artificial intelligence, has sprung up. So we all now have digital identities, and we all have digital lifestyle, right? We have digital lifestyles. It's changed a lot. We have usernames, passwords. They are getting more and more confusing. Now, biometrics, face recognition, fingerprints are becoming more widespread. And there are also so many articles named Frontier of Finance, Economics and Engineering. So what about artificial intelligence? Is it a frontier? Yes, but it's a broadening frontier. Day by day, it's expanding. But we don't know all potential consequences are knowable now. We don't know because firms should be continually vigilant for new issues in the rapidly evolving era of artificial intelligence. Many of them are reluctant, to invest in these technological changes. if you have a laptop or a mobile, and if you have credit card or electronic wallet, is it, you can do anything from any part of the world as long as you connect to a reliable Wi-Fi, right? But regulators, supervisors, public and government institutions need qualified people more than any time in the history. Otherwise, the technology deluge will sweep everything recklessly. Dear guests, conferences are a great opportunity where many experts with various backgrounds and expertise share their findings and discuss the recent issues in their field. I would like to finish by hoping that conference will generate fruitful discussions and enhance cooperation and collaboration among the participants. I also would like to extend my gratitude to conference organizers, Ercan Özen and Hakan Boz, Elvan Hoca, and other respectable people. I also thank keynote speakers and conference participants for their invaluable contributions to current knowledge and literature. And now my presentation. Let me, start from the very beginning, okay, the presentation. I don't know how to get back to first slide. Can someone help me? The first slide? Okay, thank you very much. It's great. Now, yeah, tell me please.
Hocam en altta bir şey vardı. Onu söylemek istedim ama zaten döndünüz hocam.
Şu
Tamam.
okları diyorsunuz değil mi?
Evet alttaki hocam.
Tamam. Bir baştakine dönebilecek miyim bakayım. Nedense dönemiyorum. Bir dakika. Kendi oklarıma yapabileceğim mi bunu? Onunla da yapamıyorum. Bunu çözmeliyim. Neyse ilk slide. Daha demin kendi kendine eğittiğine göre herhalde bir arkadaş buna yardımcı olduysa şimdi tekrar yardımcı olabilir bana. Evet. Tamam. Bir slide geriye alalım lütfen. Okay, thank you very much. And this is an email from the CEO of a company. And company staff, it says that I am very pleased to announce that Dan is the name of the person, will be joining us next Monday. It has been discussed with Dan that he will work 24/7, 365 days a year. Dan will be ubiquitous, will be everywhere. Out of 18 offices over the world. Dan is the name of the artificial intelligence. Dan will be serving all of us and reporting to Sarah, who has been promoted to Chief Intelligence Officer. Right. And Sarah will remain at our, global headquarters in Hong Kong. This bold artificial intelligence move has been requisited by our board of shareholders, and it will happen mostly through internal collaboration and external partnerships. I strongly support the initiative and would personally follow this progress, right? A new person joined the team. His name is Dan. He's available 7/24, 365 days a year, all the time. You can talk to him, you can chat him, you can ask him to do lots of things. You can ask him to do, every single piece of work in the company. For example, you can reach Dan by @Dan. That's it, the address of Dan. And, the new job positions: data discovery engineer, algorithms buyer, data cleaning team lead, infrastructure and computer processing buyers, partnership manager, and head of artificial intelligence capabilities training. This is not real indeed. This is a fake email. But actually, it resembles the reality, and it has been written some 3 years ago. Okay, now the next slide, please. I have an artificial intelligence, you see. I say the next slide, and next slide comes. I don't do anything. Thank you. Right, and there's a definition of artificial intelligence here, and it has been defined in 1955. John McCarthy, the scientist, said that every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can be in principle so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Simulate is important. Machine can simulate. If machine can simulate, you can transfer it to machine, right? Can artificial intelligence replace human intelligence? What is your answer? If you say yes, raise your hand, please. If you say no, just shake your hand. Can artificial intelligence replace human intelligence? No, no, no, no, no, no, no, no, no. Wow, I forgot that. I'm among academicians. They need evidence-based things. Evidence-based. It should be evidence-based. You are right. And in the first keynote speech, the professor, Bezina and Kassar showed a picture, and it was a evidence-based piloting, and on the surface of Hudson River. Would artificial intelligence do this? No, because it's not programmed that extreme cases. Even if tries to do, won't be. So human experience and human management is extremely important in artificial intelligence. So I have a dangerous statement here. Money is highly emotional. So emotional affair. Sometimes it gets completely irrational. So only those companies that can use new technology in ways to resonate with human desire, blah, blah, blah, whatever. I mean that, companies should use artificial intelligence reasonably. Okay, let's start with a set of questions. Why artificial intelligence is the future of financial services? Artificial intelligence is the foundation of future of financial services. These are the titles. Fintech, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence is the future of finance. The future of finance in the era of artificial intelligence. How automation will impact the future of finance. Video plus artificial intelligence is the future of finance. Right, that's very difficult to answer, but it's very easy to understand. These are questions yet to be answered. And banks are saying that, for example, Citibank here says that we are just a technology company that happens to have banking license. The big digital banks, JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. Goldman Sachs says that we are a technology company. We're no longer a bank. We are a technology company holding a banking license. And DNB, Deutsche, so not Deutsche actually, Netherlands, the Netherlands Bank. Technology company with a banking license. Can a bank become a tech company? Yes, Cyberbank and DBS from Singapore. Right. Next, please. Next slide. Thank you. And, European Union is very suspicious, extremely suspicious about the future of artificial intelligence and cryptocurrencies and digital finance. So they started to make volumes of regulations, European Union directives, digital finance and others. And you all remember MiFID, Markets in Financial Institutions Directive. Now we have MiCA, Markets in Crypto Assets. And the bill will provide clarity on crypto asset as well as different tokens. Okay? And also, there's a term you all familiar with, stable coins. European Central Bank said that there is no stable coin. They are confusing the market and they are confusing the investors. They are confusing the people. So there is no such a term called stable coin. So I published a paper on stable coins actually are not stable coins. And so this is the book. Okay, what does the future hold? Future hold, there is no finishing line. Machines will outperform us, not copying it, but harnessing the combination of huge data. When I say data, I have to stop and think. Data is the most important ingredient of artificial intelligence. Data, to make judgments. Huge data, I mean billions and billions and billions of data and data points, and connecting them, making, meaningful, conclusion or results, whatever. And please pay attention to the graph here. Technology is likely to be adopted by 2022. The percent of companies adopting, artificial intelligence, user and big data analytics, applications, Internet of Things, machine learning, cloud computing, digital trade. there are lots of things are getting, adopted, these technologies. And actually, this is very important because this is the beginning of a new age. Without using artificial intelligence, it will not be possible to write, attractive articles maybe within the next 4 or 5 years. Artificial intelligence will make the judgment at the end of your paper because it's capable of, digesting thousands of articles within hours, maybe minutes. And they will come up with, really nice conclusions. And 2 weeks ago, there was an advertisement in The Economist magazine. If I happen to find it here, yeah, if this is the correct one, maybe the week before, saying, The Economist published photographs of peoples, okay? I said that one of them is not real. It has been generated by artificial intelligence and looks like a perfect human. Did you hear about deep fake? Probably you should, right? Deep fake, not real, but behaves like a real. President Obama, President Putin, deep fake videos. If you have time, just type deep fake in YouTube and watch the videos. It's very funny. Next slide, please. Okay, effects of technology on the workforce. I'm just going to concentrate on financial services only. They will modify value chain. They will reduce workforce due to automation. They will expand specialized contractors. They will modify locations. So, location, what is the location? We're talking about decentralized finance. There's no certain location. Location, I don't know where, just his location. Global born location. And we call digital born locations. Digital born location doesn't matter at all. And there are lots of opportunities about the effects of technology of the workforce by 2022. By the way, I can send my presentation, or actually, Jan Hoca and Hakan Hoca may send my presentation to you all participants. Once I make, release it from here, it's your property, okay? Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, we're gonna stop here. Please look at the graph. Which regions will gain the most from artificial intelligence by 2030? $7 trillion within the next 10 years, China. And North America means United States, Canada, and Mexico, got $3.7 trillion. Southern Europe, less than $1 trillion, and developed Asia, Northern Europe, Africa. You see, China versus rest of the world. Yep. That's a very important figure. We have to think about it. China versus rest of the world. Yep. I've been to China last year. I had a chance to see their face recognition system with the artificial intelligence supported. And we visited Baidu and other, technological places. Incredible. In one word, incredible. Next slide, please. Human machine working hours. The yellow line is human, and the bold one is 2018, and the pink one 2022. Okay. And the time spent by human, for example, information and data processing, all being done by machines. You see the power of machines. Slowly but surely, they are coming. They will take all of the jobs that we are doing at the moment. Even today, we're lecturing in the universities. We are doing it online. This is my room in faculty, my faculty room. And sometimes I prefer faculty room to, run my courses, online courses. And I don't know where the students are. They can be, anywhere in Turkey, even, in a foreign country, no problem. They can access the information. They can access the knowledge, right? And the speed that the whole world was expecting, not this one, but pandemics accelerated it. Are we ready for the pandemics? Are we ready for unexpected or extreme things? No. But from now on, We have to. There are lots of opportunities as well as risks forthcoming. Please, next one, please. Now, this is a perfect picture of banking system. Technology, data, and other will increase 27,000 people. But security services, the bonds and stocks will decrease. Trading and clearing money will decrease. Asset management, robo-advising will replace almost everything. Robo-advising, okay? And private banking, now investment banking, okay? Sales and trading, they are all gone. They are all gone. Only technology, data, and other related issues, aspects will gain momentum. Next, please. And leaders in artificial intelligence adoption, you see the leads are financial services and high-tech and communications. Financial services, high-tech and communications are the leading, industries. To save time, I'm just, skipping some of them so you can have time to look at in detail. Yeah, can we have the next, please? The pandemic has accelerated the digitalization of the business, in June 17, May 18, December 19, you see, in the COVID crisis, increased the share of customer interactions digital and share of digitalized products and services. And this will go on for the next year and the following year. These are the hints of the future. These are money indeed, data. Data is gold. Data is oil. As long as you understand, you interpret, as long as you analyze them by using state-of-the-art techniques, state-of-the-art software. And you can't do it isolation. You have to cooperate and, collaborate with engineers, software engineers, artificial intelligence experts, and the finance experts and the economists come together, okay? Because we are all interconnected. Use of robots is forecast to rise rapidly. Robot in logistics, incredibly using robots, public environment, and cleaning, and inspection and maintenance in medical field and powered human exoskeletons. Means that, we are using robots more and more. And this year, in the World Trade Organization report, there was an interesting item. One item for export was quite interesting. Medical surgeon, medical operation. How this operation could be a part of export? Because I am using robotic technology here and run the surgeon in Bangladesh, in India, in Pakistan, in Indonesia, in Australia, but I'm located in North America. I'm using robots and computer, and I have a surgeon, not brain surgeon, but many types of surgeon from remote. And then this is part of the developments in the digital world. It's quite interesting, isn't it? And a lot of things are changing. You can export your labor, you can export your models, you can work for anywhere. Last year, Galatasaray, a Turkish football team, played with 11 foreign players. 11 foreign players, no Turkish players. And this will be the same for all of us in the next, couple of years' time. Robot-related manufacturing, decreased significantly at the beginning of COVID, but then recovered quickly. It means that digital systems and robots are more resilient to shocks. They are more resilient to shocks. Next, please. And we need graduates with tech and finance skills. There's a high degree of demand for young academics, technology and finance together, or technology and economics together. And, hedge funds are mining new information sources, and there are lots of opportunities here. Probably this slide will provide you an insight about the point of view of hedge funds to talent hunting. And the next slide, please. Next one. Not working. Okay. And what does artificial intelligence do? Website scraping. You just give the command to artificial intelligence and it does website scraping for you. And also they track the credit cards for credit scoring. The other one, please. The other slide, yep. Geolocation, smartphones, the World Economic Outlook published at the first week of October, they used Google location data to track the behavior of people during coronavirus. If you Google for it, you will see that every single city in the world has been tracked by Google location, Google Maps. We have been providing data voluntarily. No one is forcing us to share data. Even if you want, you can, just check the towns of Izmir, Çeşme, Foça. How does people behave? Google, data, coronavirus. Yeah. And this is the report published yesterday. The, jobs of the future, jobs report by World Economic Forum. And this, the artificial intelligence specialist is number one. Then data scientist, data engineer, big data developer, data analyst, analytics specialist, data consultant, insight analyst, business intelligence developer, and analytics consulting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 data expert and artificial intelligence. You see, the jobs of the future. Next slide, please. Now, can we stop here? No, don't change. You remember this person? Anyone who remembers this person can turn on the mic and let me know. You remember? From the Gulf War? No. Donald Rumsfeld. You remember? He was running the American Army. Donald Rumsfeld. What did Donald Rumsfeld say? He said, reports that say that something hasn't happened are always interesting to me because, as we know, there are known knowns. Means that there are things we know. We also know there are unknown unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know. And if one looks throughout the history of our country and other free countries, it's the latter category that tend to be the difficult ones. Unknown unknowns are the phenomena which cannot be expected because there has been no prior experience or theoretical basis for expecting the phenomena. There are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know. It's really difficult to translate and to write, but once you read a number of times in English, you will definitely understand the logic or philosophy behind it. This is the strategy of United States. NASA says unknown unknowns. Okay, and the next one, the final one, is the Wealth Tech book. You can see now, it's in my hand. This is my course book on FinTech. I'm teaching financial technology course and I use this one. And at the very end, 50 years after the global financial crisis, there's a class called Galactic Academy of Wealth Management, 2058. It's a very interesting chapter. So if I ask you, what's your biggest wealth? Gold, dollar, euro, or Bitcoin? It's your physical and mental health. And of course, your genuine, original intelligence, not the artificial one, right? And this was my final slide, but I also would like to share with you a book that I'm reading at the moment. Can you see it properly?
I can only read the topic, targeted.
Yeah. Can you read this? Please read. Can you read it? Can you read it? Please read. Okay? I will read you. They know what you buy. They know who your friends are. They know everything about you. Most of all, how to manipulate you. Who is saying this? You know this girl? Stephanie Kaiser? Cambridge Analytica? Facebook? You remember now? Yeah. It's a wonderful book. Everything supported by artificial intelligence. It is the abuse of artificial intelligence. Screening the people, manipulating them. We are all manipulated. We are all manipulated without exception. And for artificial intelligence, my final word is, we have just started. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you. Hocam bitirdim.
Sağ olun hocam. Çok ilginç bir sunumdu. I hope we don't end up with the chips on our skulls.
Probably. We may.
Thank you very much. It was a very interesting presentation. Thanks for your effort.
Thank you.
Profesör Coşkun Küçüközmen'e de çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Yapay zeka ve gelecekteki finansal hizmetlerle ilgili bir konuşma yaptı, bir sunum yaptı. Thank you very much for your presentation on artificial intelligence and future of financial services, Profesör Küçüközmen. Son sözlerini söylemek üzere Aziz Hoca'yı davet etmek istiyorum. Aziz Hocamı davet etmek istiyorum tekrar Adnan Menderes Üniversitesi'nden. Bir kapanış, küçük bir konuşma yapmak isteyebilir diye düşündük. Hocam orada mısınız?
Buradayım, burada. Zevkle
Tamam.
dinledim. Sunum yapan tüm katılımcılara çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Harika bir 2 saat geçirdik. Umarım Cuma ve Cumartesi günleri de böyle dolu geçer bu kongremiz. Ben kongremizin hayırlı olmasını ve başarılı olmasını diliyorum şimdiden. Ayrıca açılış konuşmasında da belirtmiştim. Aslında sizleri Kuşadası'nda ağırlayacaktık. Bundan da çok mutlu olacaktık. Ama bu sözümüzün arkasındayız. Kongre dahi olmasa özellikle yabancı konuklarımızı, tabii ki hocalarımızı da Kuşadası'na davet ediyoruz. Onları ağırlamaktan da mutluluk duyarım. Herkese iyi günler diliyorum.
Teşekkür ederiz hocam son sözleriniz için. Thank you for your last words. Aziz Hoca mentioned that he's willing to invite you. Our invitation is still on for all of you to come and visit us in Kuşadası. Now, I would like to invite Professor Koch for his last words. Hocam.
Okay, thank you very
Erdogan
much.
hocama.
That's been an excellent opening ceremony, and the technology has not let down. I'm really happy for that. I would like to thank especially the partners, the colleagues who made the opening speeches, and also our colleagues who made the keynote speeches. I really would like to see a panel in Kuşadası, and Professor Bostan, as he promised, he will be hosting us. We'll be very happy to see all of the participants there. Tomorrow and on Saturday, we'll have the sessions. We would like to see you all. Well, I wish you all well. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For the sessions, are we gonna use this link or is a different one?
So, well, would you like to?
Just wondering if to participate and listening to the sessions, we do have to use.
We have separate links on the web page. You will see the PDF of your session in which webinar session, and then you will click on the session identified just around the time. Okay, that's gonna be like that. Cheers.
And let me add something, and I think the audience can watch it on YouTube all the time. If you're not a participant on the session, you can watch it.
Okay. All right.
Teşekkür ederiz hocam, Erdoğan hocam.
Ben teşekkür ederim. Sağ olun.
Thank you very much. And now I would like to open space for the other participants. If you would like to ask a question or recommend or say something. You can open your microphone, ask anything or make a comment if you would like to. So I think that will be it. We are closing the opening ceremony. Thank you very much for everyone, for each of you that participated here today. It was lovely. Ercan Hoca is thanking everyone as well. So hope to see you tomorrow, starting from 10. Our sessions are starting at 10. Hope to see you there then. Thank you very much.